Episode 30, The Kill Flag. John announced, "You have been tested, and you are victorious. DeReg is a little better because of you. We ask that you accept this and fly it proudly." People began cheering. I was so embarrassed, yet I moved toward John to receive the flag, shuffling the extra long sweatpants as I did. I took it, not knowing what else to do. I held it up and spun around so everyone could see. More cheers. A sparkle caught my eye as I turned. The bullet hole went all the way through, and I could see the fire crackling on the other side. I lowered it, and John took it back, folding it into a ceremonious triangle pattern that I think he made up as he went, then handed it back to me. If there was such a thing as a DeReg knighting ceremony, this would be it. You see kill flags hanging around, but they aren't as common as you might think. There is a lot of wanton murder in DeReg, but people don't advertise that. A kill flag means you killed someone in the act who deserved it. You acted as judge and executioner, and your actions were deemed correct in the court of DeReg. It was a symbol people respected deeply. You would think everyone would hang a painted shirt up, but you can get your ass beat for that, if not worse. Even among criminals and junkies, there is a moral code against stolen valor. I came and sat back down. Denny pulled me in for another one-armed hug and whispered, "You're going to have to explain that to me later." I laughed and nodded, dragging my nose across Marty's oversized sweater sleeve. After that, conversation moved to the subject of the new RV, but the guys fielded most of the Q&A. I know they were excited to be the deliverers of information, and I was more than happy to eat quietly. The drinks came around a few times, and my toes started to tingle in a very satisfactory way. Ray pulled the steaks off and cut them into fair shares. Denny crawled toward the center, and Ray put 4 slices on his plate for Dave, him, Carol, and myself. They let me pick my piece first, and I chose the one with the least fat. From the way the men reacted, it sounded like I'd made the worst possible choice. I wasn't sure why. We ate with our bare hands. I stopped to lick all the way up my forearm where the juice had run. "Want mine too?" Denny laughed, holding his arm out to me, showing the trail down his forearm. Feeling quite buzzed, I grabbed his bicep and started to pull his arm toward my exposed tongue before giggling and letting go. He went ahead and licked it himself. We laughed. Just then, Dave defensively blurted out, "I'm a good guy," to no one in particular. We both looked at him. He paused, staring at Denny. "Why are you here anyway?" he asked. I cringed. Asking that is like asking a person's religion. "I fell into drugs. Couldn't get a job," Denny replied shortly. "And now you're here," Dave said with some disgust. "Yeah, but I like it here." "I'm in charge," Denny replied. "I'm in charge," my mind repeated. "Yeah, so you're going to ask me why I'm here?" Dave said, half listening. "Let's hear it," Denny replied, taking a sip of moonshine before handing it to Dave. Dave passed it on without sipping. "My bitch of a wife, that's why," he said. He was speaking to Denny, but everyone was listening. "What happened?" Denny asked, now ready for the story. 15 goddamn years. When we got married, we both agreed no kids, right? Well, 5 years in and she gets pregnant. She was making more than I was, so she begged me to stay home with him. I did. We were a team. That's what you do," Dave said. "Guess what happened next?" She lost her job?" Denny guessed. "No, she got a raise. She's a lawyer. Anyway, baby number 2 happens a year and a half later, just as the first one was halfway to babysitter age, so I could get back to work. She gets pregnant again." Denny laughed. I'd heard this one a few times, but I still enjoyed hearing Denny hear it for the first time. "So guess what happens next?" Dave asked. "Your wife got another raise?" Denny laughed. "Yes, she did," Dave yelled a little too loud. "And she got pregnant again. Third one on the way. She told me on the 4th birthday of our oldest. I'd planned a fireman party. It was adorable. It even had a candy buffet where the kids could fill goodie bags. I found the idea online." "That's it, right? 3 kids?" Denny asked. "No," Dave bellowed. 5. We had 5 kids by the time my oldest reached 8. "Holy shit," Denny started. "Right. Things were okay for another year. I was still at home, hadn't worked in 10 years, and our youngest turned 2. I finally got a vasectomy, and the end was near." "So what went wrong?" Denny asked. "She cheated on me," Dave replied. "She was working late at the office, so I had the big one watch the little ones and drove over. They were kissing in the parking lot. Not even a passionate kiss, just a see you tomorrow kiss. The same kiss she gave me every morning." "Christ," Denny said. so I rammed her car at 15 miles an hour, Dave continued. Holy hell, Dave, Denny yelled. Calm down. She wasn't in it, Dave said, holding up a hand. But that's not all. Just then, Ray yelled, she was pregnant. We all started laughing. Exactly, Dave shouted. And I'd had a vasectomy. It wasn't mine. At this point, I don't even know if the others are. Oh my God, Denny said flatly. You know how the courts are here. I wasn't going to get a fair trial. I didn't even have a job for a lawyer. What do you think they do to a man my size attacking his pregnant wife with a Buick? Child support's so high, I'd be homeless, and I wouldn't see my kids until they were 18. So I left. And now you're here? Denny asked. And now I'm here, Dave said, finally sipping his bottle. Hey, girlie, I still don't know why you're here, Dave said loudly, looking at me. Several people turned to look, curious. My eyes met Ray's immediately. I couldn't hold a job very long, I said. Really? You're one of the most organized people here. I didn't even know these jerks until you came along, someone said. Denny patted me on the back, smiling. What was it you couldn't do? I looked at Ray again. He was watching me. I just... Who wants to play spin the bottle? Ray yelled, jumping up with the empty Alfredo sauce bottle. Immediate laughter. It wasn't lost on anyone that it was 11 men to 5 women, 1 taken, and another outside everyone's age range but Dave's. Jackson stood up across the fire and yelled, Dennymon, I choose you. Then took a running leap over the fire, landing on his knees in front of us. Laughter erupted. They started wrestling the way Ray had described from the night before, but it was way funnier than I'd imagined. One would scream and run, the other would pretend to hunt. Someone would get caught, lifted into the air kicking, which turned into an almost choreographed dance. Denny spun Jackson. They jitterbugged. Somehow it became tag, then duck, duck, goose, and before we knew it, we were all running and screaming around the fire. Eventually, we settled, but the laughter carried on well past the point where my head started spinning. Dave had moved to Anna's side. She giggled, pretending to be grossed out while still touching his arm. Darcy, Jackson, and Ray formed a little unit of their own. I couldn't tell who was interested in who, but there was a vibe. Everyone else talked, sang, or laughed. Eventually, drunkenness took over, and I lay back on the ground. My butt slightly elevated on the blanket pile felt good on my back. That's when I remembered the stars. I followed the horoscope belt, looking for the constellations. Venus was out, winking at me. My mind started to spin, and it felt like I might fall in. Denny lay beside me on his side, his body pressed against mine. I could feel his warmth. Chills crept up my spine into my scalp. Anything cool up there? He asked. Just the universe, I replied, trying not to spin. Ooh, he said. My favorite place. I laughed and looked at him. I turned my head too fast and had to wait for it to catch up. I have the spins, I said. Give me your hand, he said. I did. He put his behind mine, fingers between mine. Keep your hand flat like this. He lowered it so my palm pressed against the earth. The ground isn't spinning. Focus on that. The earth spins over 1,000 miles an hour, I nerded back. Do you want to puke? He laughed, turning to smile at me. That dimple. In that moment, I existed in 2 realities. One where I lay there with his hand on mine. Another where I rolled onto my side and we were kissing by the fire under the stars. That version of me was yelling at the current one to just roll over. Just roll. He'd do the rest. The air from his nose brushed my lips, but I stayed still, lost in the daydream. Feeling better? He asked, breaking the spell. I nodded. I was. Would you like your pillow, VV? He asked. I smiled and lifted my head, trying to remember where I'd put it. Instead, he slipped his arm behind my head. His body was warm and soft. I melted into him. I fell asleep almost immediately. Episode 31, Flashback Shit Ravine. I awoke curled in the corner of Ray's hut under my sleeping bag, with my clothes and my duffel bag as a pillow. I could hear him shuffling around, and I kept my head covered for a few minutes. Are you decent? I asked when I was finally ready to move. Yeah. V? I've been up a while, Ray replied. I hopped up and made my corner neat. Ray seemed like a cool guy, but I'd only known him for a few days. He was a stranger, but so far my only ally here in DeReg. Is there any work I can do that you can think of? I asked, holding my blanket under my chin as I folded it. Why don't you do a bucket run? You remember what I told you a few days ago, right? He asked. I did. Please. Anything but that. Yes, I do. Take the spatula with you so you can scrape the buckets out. What do I ask for in trade? What is that worth? I asked. Oh, like $2 or a can of food or a bottle of water. Depends on how much they have. Just get as much as you can, he replied. With a deep inhale, I said, okay, hopping up and grabbing the bucket and spatula. Take the wagon, he added, pointing toward the yard. I took myself outside, put the bucket in the wagon, and tried not to gag. I decided to start on the cul-de-sac behind Ray's. I walked down the way yelling, buckets! There wasn't much movement. A big guy stuck his head out of his hut. What you charging, girlie? He asked. Cash. Cans or water? I replied. I'll give you a can of beans. Good? He asked. Beans were a step above a can of cranberry dressing. I'd take anything. He unlocked his fence, brought out his bucket, and held it ready while waiting for me to take the lid off mine. I did. Step back, girlie. I don't want to splash you, he said, concentrating as he slowly poured his shit and urine into the bucket. I can scrape it out with the spatula, I offered, holding it up. Oh, that's a good rubber one. Do you scrape your ass with that too? He asked. Yeah, I replied hesitantly, disgusted he'd even ask. Let me do it. I'm not really comfortable having other people handle my shit, he said, reaching out. I worked too hard on it. I let him, then smiled and left as quickly as possible. I continued around the circle yelling. A young girl next to him took me up on it, and a young red-headed guy across from her. I got another can of food and $3. I'd gone 100 feet and already done well. I started to feel better about the chore. I continued back up the way and headed east, yelling for buckets. I went down one road, turned, then came back west down another, making a horseshoe. The wagon and bucket slowly filled. I wandered for about an hour until the bucket was full, then made my way to the dumping station. The dumping station was just some guy's yard. It consisted of 2 large rain barrels where you poured urine. Suspended above them were large, low-lying clear plastic sheets with buckets positioned where water evaporated from the urine, condensed on the plastic, and slid into clean water buckets. A giant piss distillery. It didn't seem to produce much, but the concentrated urine was sold and used for cleaning. I wasn't quite ready to see it as clean. The feces went into large containers with lids. It was left for people to gather for fertilizer, but ultimately dumped into a large ravine in the mesa. The price to dump was free for urine, and 5 cans of food or $10 for solid waste. I decided to take the feces to the ravine myself and keep the food. I used the freed up space from dumping urine to collect more on the way to the mesa. Once filled, I trudged into the desert. I learned that if I walked at a steady pace and only looked out of the corner of my eye, I could spot lizards and small critters taking shade under the scattered trees. The second I turned my head, they bolted. I thought that if I ever got desperate enough, I might be able to set traps. But for now, I liked imagining them having long, happy lives with full bellies. When I reached the ravine, I tipped the bucket and some came loose. I tried shaking the rest out, but eventually scooped with the spatula. It got all over my arms. I'd received a few water bottles, so I used one to rinse myself as best I could. The disgust faded quickly as I walked back toward DeReg with 2 weeks of security in tow. I could even pay Ray back for what he'd shared the past 2 nights. A wave of freedom rolled over me. This was the first slice of security I'd felt since stumbling in last week. Even knowing 30 people's shit residue was still on my arms couldn't wipe the smile from my face. I made my way back toward Ray's, down one small road and then another. I smiled as I rolled in with my load of canned goods and cash. Ray sat under his tarp, whittling a stick and watching people pass. How'd you do? He asked when I was close enough. I got a lot of stuff, I replied, grinning ear to ear, a little bounce in my step. It's dirty work, but it pays, he said with a wink. I sat down and showed him what I'd gotten. 4 bottles of water, 16 cans of food, including stew, and about $30. He smiled, but I think he was humoring my excitement more than sharing it. What would you like in exchange for the dinners and staying here? I asked. He thought for a long moment. How about you share that beef stew tonight? We can put it over rice, he said. That's not enough. I have to earn my way, I insisted. Maybe I just like your company, he smiled. I turned red instantly. I was grateful, but he was far too old and skinny for me. Did he mean it that way? Maybe it just sounded wrong. Is there such a thing as inappropriate in DeReg? I hated the idea of owing someone who might see me that way. What about cash? I asked, pulling it from my pocket. A quarter dropped, and I scrambled to grab it. It's no good to me right now, he said. Then why did I collect it? You can still trade it or give it to a runner, he shrugged. My head tilted. What's a runner? Someone Bog lets take a car. They go into the city and shop for others, he explained. Who is that, and how does he have cars? I asked. Ray explained the system at length. It all seemed simple enough. So how do I find a runner? Do I contact Bog? I asked. No, he won't help you. Argyle's the closest runner I know, west, about 5 minutes away. But he's loony, power-hungry, expensive. Who names their child Argyle? I wondered. If you need something badly, go to him. Otherwise, barter with everyone else, Ray said. Why aren't you a runner? I asked. Bog won't let me. Why not? I'm an alcoholic, he said, still carving the stick into what looked like a spoon. I immediately feared my decision to trust him, to stay here. I calculated how many more trips to the shit ravine I could make before needing a new place. Maybe I could hide supplies in the mesa. How do you get alcohol here? I asked. Moonshine's easy to make. They do it at the base and trade it around. He could be drunk right now for all I knew. I haven't drank since moving here, though. If I fail here, I might as well hang myself. The calculations loosened, but I still resolved to bury food and water in the mesa, just in case. We talked a while longer about the city, and eventually Bog came up again. Do you think he'd let me be a runner? I asked. Ever had a substance problem? Ray asked. No. Any car accidents or traffic fines? The cameras on Coors got me once for running a red. Those aren't owned by the state. He waved it off. Well, there's one reason he won't. You don't have a homestead. He'll want to know you're here for good, not planning to run off with his car. You'll need a home. It'll need to look lived in. And you'll need to look happy to be here. I sighed. He'll grill you about everything. Any hint of risk and he'll run you off, Ray continued. I nodded. Why are you here? He asked. No one is watching me here, I said, staring at the ground.